A hotel designed to disappear at noon. At exactly midday, it vanishes, not in myth or metaphor, but in plain sight. Walls dissolve into glare. Edges blur into air. And for a brief moment, the building becomes indistinguishable from the desert that surrounds it. This hotel was not designed to stand out. It was designed to disappear. The vision began in one of the brightest places on Earth, where the sun dominates every surface and shadows are scarce. A vast desert plateau stretched in every direction, stripped of landmarks, color, and softness. Here, light was not an aesthetic element. It was a force, flattening depth, erasing contrast, rewriting perception. To understand why this hotel matters today, we must return to the first site visit. Architect arrived at dawn when the desert still held shape. Long shadows carved land into ridges and plains. Forms were readable. Space felt dimensional. But as the sun climbed, something unsettling happened. By noon, the landscape collapsed into brightness. Distance became abstract. Objects lost their edges. Even people seemed to dissolve into heat and glare. The desert was not empty. It was overwhelming. Traditional architecture failed here. Dark materials absorbed too much heat. Light materials reflected violently. Glass became blinding. Solid forms cast harsh shadows that made spaces unusable for hours at a time. The desert punished anything that tried to assert itself. The breakthrough came from an unexpected observation. At midday, the few elements that remained visible were not buildings, but mirages. Heat shimmer bent light. Air itself became architecture. The desert erased form not through destruction, but through excess illumination. The design response was radical. Instead of fighting the sun, the hotel would align with it. Surfaces were angled to scatter light rather than reflect it. Materials were chosen to diffuse brightness evenly, dissolving contrast. Geometry was softened until no edge could hold a shadow for long. The goal was not camouflage. It was disappearance through light. As early prototypes were tested, the effect was unsettling. At certain angles, the structure seemed solid. At others, it flattened into haze. By noon, under direct sun, the building's outline faded almost completely, merging with sky and sand. But disappearance introduced a new problem. If guests could not see the hotel clearly, could they feel safe inside it? And as construction advanced in a place where visibility itself collapsed each day, the team faced a deeper challenge. How do you design comfort in a world where light erases certainty? The first concern wasn't aesthetic. It was psychological. Humans rely on edges, corners, and contrast to feel grounded. In the desert at noon, those anchors disappeared. Guests could step outside and feel disoriented within seconds. Depth flattened. Distance lied. The hotel's greatest feature, its ability to vanish, threatened to become its greatest risk. Inside, the challenge deepened. Light flooded every surface. Even when filtered, shadows softened until rooms felt endless, almost unreal. Some testers described a strange sensation, like standing inside a mirage rather than a building. The desert had not been shut out. It had been invited inside. Engineers pushed back. They argued for stronger visual markers, darker frames, clearer boundaries. Designers resisted, knowing that even small contrast would break the illusion of disappearance. The hotel stood at a crossroads between safety and vision. The conflict intensified when early thermal tests revealed another issue. By scattering light so evenly, the building reduced surface temperatures, but it also removed visual cues for heat. Guests underestimated the sun's intensity, lingering too long outdoors, drifting without realizing how exposed they were. The desert was still dangerous, even when softened by design. The team needed a way to reintroduce orientation without reintroducing form. The breakthrough came from studying desert travelers. Nomadic cultures navigated featureless landscapes not by landmarks, but by rhythm. The angle of the sun, the feel of wind, the cadence of movement. They read time, not space. Inspired by this, the hotel's interior language shifted. Instead of sharp geometry, subtle gradients guided movement. Floor textures changed gradually. Ceiling heights rose and fell almost imperceptibly. Light temperature shifted by zone. Cooler where rest was intended, warmer where circulation occurred. Orientation returned, not through sightlines, but through sensation. Outside, pathways were reimagined as sequences rather than routes. Guests followed changes in sound, in underfoot texture, in airflow. The hotel no longer asked visitors to see where they were going. It asked them to feel it. Still, one fear remained. At noon, when the building vanished completely, would guests trust a place they could barely perceive? Or would the desert reclaim not just the architecture, but the people inside it? As the project moved closer to completion, the designers knew the answer would only come when the illusion was tested under its most unforgiving condition: full sun, total glare, and a moment when the hotel would disappear entirely. The first full test was scheduled deliberately at the most unforgiving hour. No clouds, no wind, just the desert at its brightest, when the sun erased depth and time seemed to stall. The team gathered inside the hotel as noon approached, watching the light climb higher, flattening the world outside frame by frame. As expected, the building began to dissolve. Edges softened first. Walls lost contrast. The horizon bled into facade until inside and outside felt strangely interchangeable. From a distance, the hotel no longer registered as an object. It became atmosphere. Inside, the effect was more profound. Rooms filled with uniform brightness, but not glare. The diffusing surfaces did their work, spreading light without heat spikes. Yet something else happened. Spatial certainty weakened. Without shadows or strong lines, guests reported feeling suspended, as if floating in a space without boundaries. The psychological tension peaked. Some testers grew uneasy. They stood still longer than expected, unsure whether they were moving forward or sideways. Others found the sensation calming, meditative, even liberating. The hotel was dividing people not by comfort, but by their relationship with control. Then a more serious issue emerged. Emergency simulations revealed that in full disappearance mode, visual exit markers became nearly invisible. In a crisis, instinct would fail. The very light that protected the building from heat threatened to erase the signals people relied on most. This was the moment the vision nearly collapsed. Engineers argued the illusion had gone too far. Safety demanded visible contrast, hard edges, unmistakable markers. Designers countered that any such intervention would permanently scar the hotel's defining principle. The standoff lasted hours, until one architect proposed a solution that reframed the problem entirely. Instead of fighting the light, they would let time restore visibility. The hotel would not disappear completely all at once. It would breathe with the sun. Micro-adjustable surfaces were introduced, layers that responded to solar intensity by subtly shifting translucency over time. As noon approached, contrast faded gradually, and as the sun passed its peak, edges slowly returned. Most importantly, emergency cues were tied not to color, but to motion and sound. Subtle airflow changes marked exits. Floor vibrations guided direction. Low-frequency tones, almost below hearing, oriented the body when the eyes could not. The building no longer relied on sight alone. It relied on the human nervous system. When the revised system was tested, the result was startling. At noon, the hotel still vanished, but guests never felt lost. Their bodies sensed orientation, even when their eyes could not confirm it. The desert had been matched not with dominance, but with empathy. And yet, one final question remained. When the hotel disappeared completely for the first time with real guests inside, would trust hold, or would instinct override design?